Welcome, everybody. Again, thank you to our volunteer board members, our cabinet here tonight, and to our educator staff and everybody in our community who's watching and with us tonight. This has been an exciting week at Weisburn, with Dana Middle School opening yesterday. Each of our schools have now reopened with hybrid in-person learning. So special thank yous to the teachers, the staff and administrators at Dana, and of course at all our schools, for diligently navigating these winds of change in COVID-19. Thank you, everybody. Tonight, we have a very full and likely lengthy agenda where we will address financial issues, including some facilities funding options, our annual financial audit, Rotary mini grant awards, which is fun for our teachers. At this point, I also want to thank Chevron and their donations director, Ms. Lily Craig, a longtime supporters. They're longtime supporters of Weisburn, and they've donated about $50,000 in the past few weeks to us. So thank you, Chevron, for your generosity and your support of education. Indeed. We will also include a resolution denouncing xenophobia and the anti-Asian American and Pacific Islander sentiment, and a number of other issues in this rescheduled board meeting. Also present for many is the issue of the DV High School's reopening. And I'm sure my colleagues will personally plan to share some thoughts on this topic during our comment section later in our meeting. We have received several pages of public comment so far. So if needed, in light of the ongoing conversations regarding high school reopening, we will amend our usual public comment section tonight to expand it if necessary. And during that public time, open our chat room in a limited fashion. During public comments, we'll ask those viewing if there's any additional comments anybody wants to make. If so, we'll ask you to put your name in the chat box that will be open just at that time, and put the name that's your screen name so we can find you, and our team will allow you to speak and bring you into the meeting. This is indeed a challenging and defining time in our partnership. We are committed to finding a path forward. Again, I'll have more to say here, and we appreciate all comments. So with that opening, let us now move to a motion to adopt the agenda, please.
Here, a motion.
Thank you, Nelson.
Second.
Thank you, Joanne. Ms. Subaki?
Favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you.
All right, let us, as we always do, move to the flag salute. Ms. Harbeck, Dr. Harbeck, forgive me. Dr. Harbeck, if you would be so kind.
Of course. Please stand. Place your hand on your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
And
one nation, under God, indivisible,
Indivisible.
with liberty and justice for all.
thank you, Eileen. We will now turn to public comments, but before opening to public comments in our general forum, we again want to thank those individuals who shared their thoughts on our Share Your Thoughts section on our website. Basically, the themes emerged were a desire for reopening for in-classroom and in-person instruction. A number of folks spoke just to that side of that equation. Was a comment for a desire for lunches not to be required for all students at grab and go at our sites. A family shared they were health conscious and seek to avoid processed foods so as not to require students to take it. I don't think that's the protocol, but Dr. Silvers, perhaps you can address that in your comments at that time. So thank you for these comments. Ms. Subaki, let's now move to our public comment section.
Thank you. We have a number of public comments this evening. We have a few who would like to read them themselves. I'm going to take them in the order that I received. The first person I have to read is Julia Bloomquist. She was not able to be called at the last meeting. IT, if you can transfer her over, let's see. I don't seem to be seeing her again. So we are going to move on to the next one. I will come back to you if I do see this name again. The second person, yes.
Subaki, if I may, have we opened the chat so people can put their name? And if Ms. Bloomquist is on the line, maybe she can tell us if she's using a different screen name. Thank you.
Yep. I have the chat open and there's nothing yet, but we will come back to that one just in case. Ms. Bloomquist, if you do arrive, please just write your name into the chat and we'll slide you over. The second name I have is from Juan Ortiz. I'm to read this one for him. Dear members of the board, first of all, as a first-time speaker, it was not easy at all to find the website information to provide input. The flyer I received simply provided the link to the Zoom meeting, but no other links or information that facilitated comment. I found your open letter to the Da Vinci board to be reprehensible and so incredibly transparent on the true motives of speaking on behalf of a small minority of vocal critics. It surely doesn't represent my family's viewpoint, nor all my fellow Da Vinci parents and their high school students. I believe Da Vinci's cautious approach to very slowly reopening is the most prudent path forward. It has been a difficult year and for some parents, much more than others. But what will we gain from rushing to a full open approach if we will just end up aggravating the COVID-19 spread? I find this way of thinking very short-sighted and lacks empathy for the teachers that will be putting their loved ones in harm's way by possibly transmitting COVID-19, albeit they have been vaccinated. Also, have you carefully considered the nature of children and their desire to socialize, interact without being capable of policing themselves on maintaining the necessary distance and mask wearing at all times? The potential for outbreaks and spreading of COVID-19 to other unvaccinated members of their families is too high of a price to pay. Being so close to achieving a much higher rate of vaccination throughout our community doesn't feel like the positives outweigh the negatives. Please reconsider your precipitated open letter and continue to trust the great leadership that Da Vinci board has shown and continues to show. Thank you. The next person is Kelly Schumacher. If we could bring her over, please. Hold on, I think, Kelly, I'm not sure. Did you still want to speak?
Yeah, I'm here. I did. Thank you. Yes. Good evening. I'm Kelly Shoemaker, proud mom of a 10th grader at Da Vinci Science, a 7th grader at Dana, and a proud teacher at Cabrillo School. Wiseburn Elementary teachers have embraced the philosophy of cognitively guided instruction. Students learn that there is usually more than one way to approach a problem. Teachers guide their students to listen and reflect upon their peers' thinking. They learn to disagree respectfully, ask questions, and engage in conversation in order to deepen understanding. Your open letter to Dr. Wonder and the Da Vinci School Board dated March 16th, the day before the high schools presented the details of their plans, was unexpected and shocking. I can understand that you might not agree with the Da Vinci plans or feel the need to support disappointed community members, but I would have expected you to meet with Da Vinci's administrative cabinet, ask questions, and find out more. It was confusing to hear you characterize the Da Vinci plans as perfunctory, nebulous, and ineffective. Perfunctory means carried out with a minimum of reflection. At the March 10th and 25th Da Vinci School Board meetings, the results of student and parent surveys, as well as the process administrators and teachers engaged in to design their plans, were shared. It was abundantly clear that these plans were developed after deliberate and deep reflection. Nebulous means unclear or vague. I found Da Vinci Science's reopening plan to be clear and flexible, with room to become more permissive or restrictive as COVID numbers and county guidelines change. As to whether their plan is ineffective, that remains to be seen, as students do not return to campus until April 12th, giving their teachers time to be fully vaccinated. The characterization in the last paragraph that the Da Vinci Schools team appears to have deviated from its sole purpose of serving Wiseburn students grades 9 through 12 is unfair. In all of the meetings Da Vinci has hosted, it was clear that while there is a vocal group of families who desperately want our high school to open more fully, there are also a range of voices to be considered. The Da Vinci High School plan strives to honor the needs of all stakeholders, preserve instructional integrity and equity, and keep everyone safe. No educator is happy about this pandemic and its effect on schools, students, and their families. We are all making plans that we think will best serve our students while not contributing to the spread of COVID. Please be role models for our community. Please be strong, thoughtful authorizer and oversight agency Da Vinci and Wiseburn schools need right now. Please work to engage in purposeful dialogue and understand the thinking behind the high school reopening plans And let's speak to each other as the colleagues we are, passionate, skilled educators who care deeply about our community, our students, and their futures. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Okay. The next comment is from Melissa Craig. I am in strong support of our district adopting action item number 5. It is recommended the board approve resolution 2021-24 denouncing xenophobia and anti-Asian American and Pacific Islander sentiment due to the COVID-19 pandemic and affirming the district's commitment to the well-being and safety of Asian Americans as presented for the safety of our Asian American and Pacific Islander communities within our district. The next comment is from Joe Ann Shepherd. Parking is prohibited on 134th Street for student pickup on Monday and Thursday, causing disruption with trash pickup blocking. It is also in violation of the agreement made in public hearing when the new school was built. This is the reason it once again fronts on 135th. Do not want to apply for a cease and desist order. Parking is only agreed to on Wednesday. The next public comment is from Gloria, and she would like to read that herself. She is in the audience. So slide over, Gloria, please. It's Gloria G.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes,
Great.
thank you.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for the time tonight. Thank you for the letter of March 16th to the Da Vinci Board. Thank you for changing tonight's meeting to accommodate the Da Vinci Board that changed at the last minute. And again, I want to thank you for the letter because as a Wiseburn resident and a parent of a senior and a freshman of the Da Vinci on-campus science high school, I am in agreement with your letter. I understand there are long unsettled issues between Wiseburn and Da Vinci, and maybe we have now reached the point to address them. So I'm here to ask you, what can the community do now? You've successfully opened a return of K through 8. I ask that you give us the proper guidance and direction for the return of the on-campus high schools. You've done amazing in listening to us. Please continue to listen and then tell us, what can we do? How do we fix it? How do we address so many of the long unsettled issues? I want to note how disappointed it has been that since receiving your letter, there has been no indication or discussion of change for now or in the immediate future by anyone from Da Vinci. The plans in place today are the same ones presented on March 10th. To date, there's been no communication with verifiable data on what's being done to move us forward towards solutions. I ask that the Wiseburn Board exercise whatever oversight it has in order to bring the 3 on-campus high schools back to the Wiseburn residents that fought so hard for them. Thank you.
Very much. The next comment is from Ann Tittle. Dear Wiseburn board members, I would like to thank you for your ongoing efforts to urge the Da Vinci Schools Board of Trustees to reopen Da Vinci Science, Da Vinci Communications, and Da Vinci Design for meaningful in-person learning. The recent decisions of the DV Board of Trustees are contradictory to what is desired by approximately 60% of our community and to what is recommended by public health experts and the American Academy of Pediatrics. Recent and historical behavior of the DV Board and DV CMO leadership has caused a divide in our community that is hurting our students, our families, and our community organizations. As the leader of a community organization, I can attest firsthand that we are having increased difficulty with recruiting parents to join our school-based volunteer organizations, such as the PTAs and the Ed Foundation. Parents are citing doubts about the Da Vinci high schools as the source of their hesitancy to volunteer with these organizations. Parents have said to me, I'd love to join your board, but we aren't sure about Da Vinci High School, so we might be pulling our students out of Wiseburn. Sadly, at last week's DV Board of Trustees meeting, I observed that some DV board members are more committed to defending the missteps and miscalculations of DV CMO leadership than they are to engaging with the Wiseburn community. I felt that some DV board members even chastise parents for advocating for their children's needs. In addition, I observed that there is an ever-present desire by some DV board members to focus on expanding the scope of Da Vinci's offerings by creating new products for potential clients who live far away from our schools, rather than focusing on the safe reopening of the 201 building high schools. This continued disregard for our community is hurting our students and families. Wiseburn Board, you are a superlative example of a board that is truly engaged with the families it serves. Thank you for continuing to advocate for our students, our families, and our community. Grace Hausvicka. Dear members of the Board of Trustees, I would like to thank you for your support in approving a board resolution denouncing xenophobia and anti-Asian and Pacific Islander sentiment. While the AAPI community in Wiseburn is relatively small, it is a growing population. As a small group, the AAPI community is sometimes told that we are insignificant in number, and in turn are too insignificant to be acknowledged or have AAPI issues addressed. I am truly appreciative that this will not be the case in Wiseburn. I recently saw this quote online and it really hit home for me. It read, "I see no color is not the goal. I see your color and I honor you. I value your input. I will be educated about your lived experiences. I will work against the racism that harms you. Tell me how to do better. That's the goal. Diversity is such an asset to our Wiseburn community. I look forward to seeing what Wiseburn will do in the future to create an even more inclusive community. With gratitude, Grace Hausvicka, Cabrillo ELD teacher." The next comment is from Christy Sterling, and Christy is here. Please slide her over. Hello, Christy.
Hello. Let me start video. Hello, thank you for letting me be here tonight. My family is 3 years new to this community. My youngest is at Dana, 8th grader, and my oldest is 10th at DVC. My 8th grader is seriously struggling right now, both academically and emotionally, which just breaks my heart. My 10th grader on the surface is doing fine. His grades are great. He doesn't seem depressed. He's going out in the community. He seems to be doing great. Where I see Zoom school failing him is his growth, his personality, his leadership skills, his drive to move forward, to go above and beyond. All that to me comes from being in school. It comes from being in class, face to face, challenged by your teachers, challenged by your classmates. It comes from quickly thinking on your feet and adapting to your environment, getting along with people that you get along with and that you don't. And this to me is what he is struggling with and will continue to struggle with. It's the most important part that I see in being in high school. I'm here tonight because I'm seeking help and getting through to the CEO of our high school. I started reaching out to Mr. Wonder, I guess back in December, late December, early January, where I noticed there was 0. And when I see 0, there was 3 emails sent to us since schools closed. Purposeful communication coming from the high school. Something I thought was odd as we're shut down. Sparing you all the details, dates of countless emails sent to Mr. Wonder and the board. Let's just say their lack of response, addressing specific issues and avoiding very straightforward questions. My only takeaway is that they truly do not care about the student, school, me as a parent, or our community. I'm coming to you because there's nowhere else to go, honestly. Mr. Wonder decided that he was not reopening. Science, parent input, even board input won't change his mind or even cause him to take pause and consider a better reopening plan that accommodates all the students. Despite the schools surrounding us, including Dana, where my child starts this week, our elementary schools, he refuses. He refuses to open any of Da Vinci for any meaningful in-class purposeful learning for all the students, for all of us, not just a select few. At this point, it's just criminal. Governing agencies have all said that it's safe. K through 12 should be open, period. End of question. So my questions are, how can the only high school that we are districted to for our neighborhood be a charter school that's not governed or represented by the community? 2, where does the responsibility lie when the CEO doesn't respond, react, or show accountability or any good faith when questions from the parents come? I'm scared that come August, we're going to be in the same place we are now, that we're not going to be moved any further along. I just want to fight. I'm not going to give up. My kids, our kids have a fundamental right to be in school, and I need to know where to go from here. I'm at a loss.
Thank you, Christy. Our next public comment will be from Mr. Larry Hubler. Larry Hubler is in the attendee circle, so you can switch them. Hi, Mr. Hubler.
Hello. Hello. Sorry. Well, can I go ahead and start?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Larry Hubler. I've been part of the Wiseburn community for about 2 decades. I have a senior and a sophomore at Da Vinci Science High School, and they have attended Cabrillo, 138th Street Elementary, and Dana Middle School. I participated with the community in getting 3 bonds passed to build new schools at Cabrillo, at Dana Middle School, and at Wiseburn Da Vinci High Schools. We walked through the neighborhood informing residents how important it is to have great school facilities for our children. I also served on the bond oversight committee for our new Wiseburn High School. But that being said, after the last Da Vinci board meeting, I've come to the conclusion that it was never Matt's intention to reopen in-person instruction. There was some mention of some discussions that took place in August, but after that, there was no planning with teachers, administrators, maintenance, or parents. Families just were never part of this process. Instead, Matt has been out speaking about the case against returning to normal. This is actually the name of the seminar at the Education Palooza conference, in which Matt was one of the featured speakers representing Da Vinci schools. For many families and students, the normal is the desire to return to school as soon as possible after months of physical isolation, prolonged stress, and anxiety. But according to Matt, what if normal is the wrong goal? This is only one example of Matt's speaking engagements promoting telecommuting and remote learning. More recently, he's been speaking about the new Porter schools where he is a board member. What we need is a CEO or a superintendent that believes in the on-campus model and is focused on the Da Vinci Science, Communication, and Design high schools. We need a superintendent that will listen to the parents and to the voices of our community, that we're responsible for the unification of Wiseburn Unified School District and our beautiful Wiseburn High School facility. Matt needs to move to be just the CEO of the 3 other hybrid and remote schools. And we need our Da Vinci High School superintendent who believes in the on-campus model and can better serve our kids and our Wiseburn community. That being said, I do know that for these 3 bonds that I walked through the neighborhoods with other community members for the last 2 decades, developing 3 new facilities, schools for the Wiseburn Unified School District, include Da Vinci High Schools. I know that several of the board members today, I walked and made phone calls by each and every one of you. So I know your heart's in the right place and value the communication with the parents and also our community. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hubler. The next public comment is from Renee Hubler. Dear Wiseburn Board of Trustees, many of the community voices that you heard at the last DV board meeting and some of those that you hear tonight are people that poured their heart and soul to make unification a reality and are also the ones that supported the construction of our Wiseburn High School facility. Without our strong community, the Da Vinci schools would not have a home or even exist. Furthermore, if it weren't for the community, we would not have athletics and a music program. The community had to fight to make these programs. The community is tired of constantly battling with Matt and has lost all confidence in him as CEO, and we've lost confidence in the independent board that continues to ignore the voices of the community, especially now with the huge issue of our kids not being given the choice to go back to in-person instruction by their teachers, not via Zoom. You didn't listen to us before, but please listen to us now and help us get out of this mess. Sincerely, Renee Hubler. The next comment is from Monique Gonzalez. It's from the Share Your Thoughts page. First, I would like to thank the Weisburn School District board members for holding all of our students' educational rights to their highest interest and asking the Da Vinci Board of Trustees to revisit their high school reopening plans. I was very disappointed by the lack of in-person planning that was presented at the parent meeting by Da Vinci Communications yesterday. I'm very confused why Weisburn as a school district has been able to come up with a safe reopening plan for our TK through 8th grade students, while our high school students have been denied the same educational right. Our students and families in the district that are in TK to 8th grade were given an option to participate in a hybrid program or remaining learning virtually for the remainder of the school year. And the district made it clear that it would be their responsibility to prepare and plan accordingly to offer each student and family their preference, even if it meant hiring substitute teachers. So after attending the parent meeting last night and hearing it is impossible to fit 24 students in a classroom as an immediate excuse to not being able to reopen is not justifiable. This is also assuming that all students are opting to return, which may not even be the case. Our TK through 8th grade schools have also designed cohort schedules, whether that is an AM/PM schedule or A and B days, in order to offer each student an opportunity to have some in-person instruction and have less kids in the classroom. I feel that Da Vinci schools can get creative and offer in-person instruction, even if it is just 2 courses. As you, the board members of the Weisburn School District, mentioned, it is the responsibility of the Da Vinci Board of Trustees and leadership to be creative during these challenging times. The next comment is from Helen Martinez, and she would like to read that herself. If we could please slide her over.
Hello.
Hi, Helen, we're here.
Hi, thank you.
Are you ready? There you go.
Sorry about that. Dear Weisburn board members, as a mother of an 8th grade Dana student, I'm very happy to see our schools opening back again for some in-person instruction. But I must share that my son is somewhat anxious and apprehensive about his return. During the course of the pandemic and the time that students have spent at home, I have noticed my son slowly lose motivation for school, friends, and all things social. As a mom, it breaks my heart to see how despondent and unengaged my son has become during the last year. And this is the case and theme for many parents that I speak to. I'm not just worried for my son, who's become a bit of an antisocial hermit, but for so many kids that seem to be slipping into varying forms of depression. There are many reasons why the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics have recommended students return to school for in-class learning. But the social emotional part of it is a really big part. I'm glad that Weisburn is returning now and providing an opportunity for students to start their path for social, emotional, and learning loss recovery. It is vital. As the mother of a junior at Da Vinci Science, I want to see the same type of options offered to our high school students. Our teens are suffering from similar issues, and it's time that they get put on the same path of recovery instead of languishing for another 4 months and waiting until August. Weisburn Board, I ask that you continue to help to get our high schoolers back in for in-person instruction. I ask you to please find a way to help the parents in the community to be heard when it comes to our high school. This is our high school. We've put our blood, sweat, and tears into this school. And it is a true shame that we feel that we don't have a voice and that we're not heard when we're addressing your counterparts at the Da Vinci Board. So please help us. Please help us find a way to put our kids on the path of recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. The next public comment is from Maria Flores Acosta. My child was thrilled to resume in-person instruction at Dana Middle School yesterday. My concern is that there was no crossing guard at 135th and ISIS to assist students in crossing that intersection safely yesterday, nor today. I know that Wiseburn Unified School District is committed to student safety. Please ensure that the intersection of 135th and ISIS is consistently staffed with a crossing guard on days that students are in school. In addition, please provide a district contact to report when a crossing guard is not present so a replacement may be secured in a timely manner. Thank you for your immediate attention to this safety concern. The next comment is from Dr. Ethan Kreisworth. He wished to read it himself, but it doesn't look like he's present at this time. So I'm going to move on. It looks like Gloria may have put in a second comment. I'm not sure. Let me check here. Okay. Gloria, send me a message if you have a secondary comment. I'm going to read a comment from Trisha Mano. Good evening to our esteemed Wiseburn Board and Administration. I write to you all tonight in solidarity with the AAPI community. As a Pacific Islander myself, it has been heartbreaking to see the events transpiring in our country. We make up a small part of the population in our district, so I felt it was important to use my voice tonight. We are living in a very turbulent time, and as an educator, I am continually seeking ways to help my young learners not only process these specific events, but the real world around them in general. I was really happy to see the resolution that the board is considering tonight in regards to denouncing xenophobia and anti-Asian American and Pacific Islander sentiment in regards to COVID-19. As leaders of our district, I know you understand your voices play an important role in our community. So thank you for this resolution in condemning this hate and amplifying the voices of those who do not have your platform. I also want to take this opportunity to address the history curriculum in our district. Now more than ever, I believe it is extremely important for our district to show our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. From the protests last summer, continued turmoil involving race and gender, and these current hateful acts against the AAPI community, we need to update our curriculum. The current materials are extremely outdated and are from one narrow lens. If we are going to promote this diversity, equity, and inclusion amongst our community, we need to provide resources and curriculum for our students to hear from a variety of different voices and lenses of the past and engage them in civics of the now. I truly hope this is something we will be working towards as a district. Thank you so much for your time and for your consideration of this important resolution. Sincerely, Trisha Mano. The next public comment is from Annie Malik. As the mother of a 6th grade Dana student and a senior at Da Vinci Science, I would like to say thank you for giving my daughter an option to return to in-class learning at Dana. She is so excited to start tomorrow, and on the other hand, I'm now confronted with the fact that my senior will not have the same option. How do I explain this disparity to my son? It's very difficult when all the neighboring schools are also opening up. Some for hybrid and some are doing a full open with no cohorts. Whether it's 38 days, 30 days, 20, or even 15 of in-person instruction, it's better than just writing off the remainder of the school year. Every minute or day of in-person instruction is gold and can never be compared to remote learning. Wiseburn Board, please continue to hear the parents and community members and help us get some form of hybrid in-person instruction for our kids. Thank you. Ms. Gutierrez, she sent me a message and she does not have a second comment. I do have a comment that was to be read by Harley Hoff herself, but her cell coverage doesn't allow her, so I will be reading this for her. Forgive me, I am Zooming from Rec Park in El Segundo at my daughter's high school softball game. It's a day I have been looking forward to for a long time. I had hoped the word Wiseburn would be proudly worn across her chest. I would like to start by thanking you for the letter to the Da Vinci Board. Thank you. Wow, I didn't see that coming at all. I very much appreciate the community's voices were heard. I know you heard from residents without students as well who also have a voice. I think you've all heard my voice on this before. You all know that many in the community, including myself, felt how I felt about the DV arrangement. Even so, I didn't expect it to get this bad. DV feels no obligation to our community, plain and simple. Wow. I'm speaking today to ask for your help. Help us figure out what is going on. Why is our campus high school getting lumped together with all the Da Vinci hybrid-based models? You all know I was surprised to learn of the separate boards immediately after unification. This is even more shocking. We knew the vast differences of the DV philosophies that don't fit everyone. We knew they had a line waiting to get in, and it would not matter what we had to say if we had any issues in the future. I'm not happy that seems to be the case. The WUSD needs to have oversight of DV as our high school of record. They live in the facility that was fought for and funded by stakeholders. We will be paying on these bonds until our grandchildren's children. It's too late for my kids. It's crazy that I'm saying this because they were at Cabrillo when I joined this fight for a high school, but it's not too late for some others. I hope that we can get this worked out and figure out how we can get our high school on the same path that you, our trusted WUSD school board, is forging forward. We know you, we trust you. You've proven to be a board that works very closely with community parents. This is why it was upsetting after unification. It's definitely not perfect, like Dana is still standing today. We will save that for another day. We need to get this right. We need to make this right. These decisions for the high school should be driven by the Wiseburn community, not 50 plus or other zip codes in other parts of Los Angeles. Thank you. The next comment is from Cindy Ramirez de Jesus. To the WUSD board members, I'm writing on behalf of my two kids. One is currently attending Juan Cabrillo and the other is at DV Connect. During the pandemic and in transferring my eldest child, I was offered two fantastic school settings. Unfortunately, one of the schools did not have a plan in place and were making up the plan as time went on. Due to this fact, I chose DV Connect, which had a proven plan in place and was the better equipped school to handle distance learning during the pandemic. The teachers' staff were versed in the programs, counseling was set up to ensure children's social emotional needs were met, parent meetings occurred on a monthly basis with themed chats that led to wonderful open discussions known as fireside chats. Wellness Wednesdays filled with art, music, meditation, a chance for children and parents to reflect on the ongoings of the world. Realize we are not just living through a pandemic, we are surviving. This was the opposite occurrence of what my son received at Juan Cabrillo Elementary. Being a special needs student, my son relies on planning, consistency, and communication. Aside from the behavior meetings monthly and addressing his needs, we have dealt with upheaval of school schedules, adjusting to the learning styles of different teachers, changing times, reschedule school therapies, rescheduling our one-to-one to meet the ever-changing times, as well as the turnover of the psychological and special services director, who since the summer of 2020 has changed 3 times with no contact regarding the change, but hearing it from other parents, and our special education teacher 2 times as well. I hold no fault to the wonderful teachers of the Wiseburn Unified School District who are on the roller coaster ride of emotions and ever-changing schedules at the will of the board, and certain parents who felt it was time to return to normal, which meant again another change where the choice was not so much given to me as determined by the board and select parents, to return to hybrid and lose our teacher, or continue distance learning and lose our teacher. Either way, it was an unacceptable loss. The majority voice to return to school, which at the time was a voice of 30 or so parents, relentlessly contacted the board, won out. This decision that was made did not speak to the diversity of our students and to be a part of the district that prides itself on diversity and inclusion. It fell short. Let's not forget how our board, who once stood by our teachers and their constant pleas they made to the board for the ability to be vaccinated and keep their families safe, fell on deaf ears, as seen a week before the school was to open and teachers were chasing and networking with others to find the elusive vaccine in order to have some sort of protection prior to returning to school. This is not something I will ever forget, nor will I ever sit well with me. Fortunately for my daughter, she was spared this so-called choice at Da Vinci Connect. For that reason and so many others, I applaud Da Vinci schools for finding and choosing an equitable solution, prioritizing vaccines for the teachers and staff, realizing mental and physical health of teachers and their families is just as important as the students and parents, and they shouldn't have to exchange for one another. For not creating and contributing to the upheaval of creating a new plan that separates students from their teachers, which has been the students' very lifeline in their studies and social emotional health during the pandemic. Really realizing that as everyone is racing to focus on what is lost in regards to academic achievement, instead choosing to focus and acknowledge we are in a pandemic and our mental health needs to process this, and creating groups, maintaining that distance to come in for activities, whatever that may look like. Thank you, Da Vinci Schools, and thank you, Da Vinci Board, most of all, for focusing on the equitable solution and not a solution that may work for most while leaving out a minority, thus remaining a school and school board that holds to its core mission and values. To the Wiseburn Unified School Board, I really hope you take note that in order to maintain and adhere to the goals of inclusion, equity, diversion, you must not merely say those words or bolster them on your site, but you must be held accountable to those words in action. The next comment would be from Russell Kale, and we will move him over.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Russell Kale. My wife and I are proud parents of a senior at Da Vinci Science, an 8th grader at Dana, and a 6th grader at Dana. I want to start by saying thank you, all of you. I know many of you personally, and I know that the hard work that you put in as board members, as administrators in the Wiseburn Unified School District, and as staff is a lot of time. And as I know, many of you are putting in just Herculean efforts. And so thank you so much. The reason I am compelled to speak to you tonight is because I have serious concerns about the relationship between the Wiseburn Unified School District and the Da Vinci schools. I am the chair of the Bond Oversight Committee for Measure A and AA. I've seen this process. My wife and I moved here in 2005. I've seen us go through the unification process. I've seen us go through the bond measures. I've seen it all. And I know many of you know way more than I do because you were in the trenches through that whole thing. So what I want to stress is that so many people in this community fought so hard for that to be our high school. And I'm very concerned that we're starting to see a bit of a crack in the foundation. And I want you guys to know that we have to make sure that we promise the community what they were told they would get, our high school. So I spoke to the Da Vinci board last week, and now I want to tell you guys, the Wiseburn community supported the unification process for years to get a high school, the Wiseburn High School. So I'm asking you to do whatever it takes to make sure there will always be harmony between the Wiseburn Unified School District and our high school. We've come way too far to lose that. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I know all of you have the best interests of the kids at heart, and I know that you will continue to do that. Thanks again. Bye.
Thank you, Russell. I'm going to turn back. Dr. Ethan Kreisworth is not able to read his comment, so I do have it here that I can read. Many of us are ill-advised on who the DV board is and how they are elected. That said, when are elections held? If no elections, how do community members have a say as taxpayers of our high school? Okay. And I believe I have one from Michelle Gonzer. Thank you for opening up the school for hybrid campus learning. My daughters are so happy to be back. I am so saddened that my 11th grader doesn't have the option to return. Please continue to fight for us, as DV could care less what most families want. Zoom learning is not effective at all, as Mr. Wonder claims students are successful with this model. This does not apply to the majority of the students, I know. It's heartbreaking that Mr. Wonder could care less about the well-being of our kids. Please, please help us. And I have a comment from Miss Linda Sesser. I am writing to you to express my concern not only over recent events regarding the Da Vinci High School return to school plan or lack thereof, but also longstanding concerns over the failure of the Da Vinci board members and CEO's lack of transparency, collaboration, and inclusion. As you are all aware, the idea of a high school for the Weisburn School District was born out of our community. It took life through the dedication and commitment of numerous community volunteers, parents, students, and other individuals who believed our district deserved its own high school. A more recent example of this commitment was displayed when the section of our community family known as the Orphan Blocks willingly agreed to postpone their efforts to join our district so as not to distract from the unification of our high school, something that was risky for them, but a sacrifice they were willing to make. This sacrifice is indicative of the spirit of all of Weisburn. Since the creation of the high schools, however, what has not been apparent is the willingness of the DV board and CEO to engage with the community, to place value on our input, and to promote transparency in its dealings. It is time for the Weisburn board to hold the Da Vinci board to its true mission. High schools that reflect and appreciate the Weisburn community and proudly display its name in its purpose, not just as a banner. Let me check once more for Ms. Blomquist. Okay, I do not have her. I do not have any further comments. Let me just check this. I don't have any more public comments at this time.
Thank you to all of our community for your comments. Thank you to Ms. Subaki and Kwan for a magnificent job of balancing that. That was done elegantly, magically, really difficult. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the people who commented from all perspectives. We really do hear these. They really inform us, and we are better because of them again. So thank you. The board members and the cabinet will have comments. The board may comment on many of the issues that were addressed here, but as you can see from our agenda, first we have some special presentations. And Dr. Silver, let me turn it to you at this time to introduce our first presenters.
Sure, Dr. Goldman, sorry, bear with me here. We have a lot, so I'm taking a look at which one's first. So the first one we have is King Consulting. We actually had a pleasure, and I actually will ask Dave to give a little bit of background on this. We had a pleasure to meet with Jamie and Jennifer, and I don't know who else is with them today, but I don't see them, in regards to some funding opportunities that we may have for our facilities. And so this would be some matching fund opportunities and the like. So I think I probably won't do it justice, so maybe turn it over to them. Dave, I don't know if you wanted to share anything prior to the presentation.
Sure. You know, we've been working with Jamie and her team for a number of years, specifically in our OPSC matching fund, state matching fund. So very talented, very capable group, and looking forward to their presentation.
Can I please have Jamie King Eisman and Jennifer Gibb brought over, please?
Good evening. Good evening, Board President Goldman. Good evening, Dr. Silvers. It is a pleasure to be here tonight and to see you all. Jennifer, I'll introduce myself. I'm Jamie King. That was a wonderful introduction, so I feel like I don't need one, but I'm Jamie King Eisman, the president at King Consulting. We're a small firm of just 4 people. We like to say we're small but mighty. I work closely with Jennifer Gibb. As Dave mentioned, we have worked in your district for a number of years. Roger Benuelos knows my business partner, Cheryl King, very well, and Evelyn up in our Chico office as well. But Jennifer and I are here tonight to talk to you about some opportunities for some state funding, and to talk to you a little bit about local and federal funding opportunities as well. So Jennifer, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm Jennifer Gibb. I joined King Consulting about a year ago. In my previous life, I was an owner. I managed facilities and state funding opportunities with the help of King for about 10 years. So I bring to the team the district's point of view and can assist your district and staff in not only getting the money, right? Our team helps get the money, but we really want to help you keep it. So that's where I come in, and I'm happy to be here tonight. We have some great opportunities to speak with you about. I'm going to share my screen to share our presentation. Okay.
Great. So I wanted to begin the discussion with the status of a current state funding application that you have sitting at the state, kind of awaiting a district decision about how to move the application forward. Back when we submitted your charter school facility program application with Da Vinci High, we also submitted a new construction funding application for 2 classrooms that were part of phase 2 of that project in the gymnasium and pool area. The state regulations recently, OPSC recently changed how they process the applications. The State Allocation Board actually made some changes a couple of years back, and now you have to demonstrate that you have the eligibility both at the time that you submitted the application and when they pick up your application to process it. Well, they picked up your application to process in the 2019-20 school year. You did not have the eligibility. They picked it up kind of as the school year was turning over. We ran it again with your 2020-2021 enrollments, and because of COVID, you also don't have the eligibility in the current year. The issue the funding application would generate approximately $1.5 million if you could demonstrate that you have the eligibility. And the eligibility is really just a comparison of your projected enrollments to your capacity, to the number of classrooms that the state sees you having to house students. And the real issue with this application is that Da Vinci Connect, specifically, the state, it has to do with the way the state interprets classroom-based versus non-classroom-based enrollments. So, and Jennifer, you can move to the next slide. The non-classroom-based enrollments are really the issue. So historically, Da Vinci Connect has operated a hybrid program. It precludes those enrollments from being counted when we project your enrollments for your new construction funding eligibility. What's interesting is that the spirit of this regulation, and I'm not going to read it to you, don't worry, is that the state doesn't want to fund facilities that aren't full of kids for the full instructional time. So really the spirit of this regulation was the state didn't want to fund a classroom that was only going to be used once or twice a week or once a month for independent study students, let's say. But really they've never run into this kind of hybrid program before, where you have cohorts of kids that are moving through the classrooms and the classrooms are filled all day. So the facilities are being used 100% of the time, but the individual students are only there 60% of the time. So unless the students were there 80% of the time, per this regulation, those enrollments can't be counted. We think that there's an opportunity here to appeal this application, at least to start that process with the Office of Public School Construction. We work closely. We've had over a 20-year relationship with their supervisors there. In fact, when I brought this to one of the supervisors, they're like, we don't think you can include those enrollments. So we've talked with Dr. Silvers and with Dave about this, that we think there's an opportunity to have them kind of reconsider how they interpret this regulation and what the spirit of the regulation is. We work very closely with Tom Duffy of Murdoch, Walrath and Holmes, who's also the head of works closely with the Coalition for Adequate School Housing. We've explained to him the application, its status, and the regulation and the hybrid program. And he also feels that there's an opportunity to have a conversation with the head of OPSC and potentially move it forward as an appeal. So really the two options for the application right now, and that's a really high level overview of kind of all the nuances. Jennifer, if you can move to the next slide. The two options are, well, three actually. You could rescind the application without moving it forward. You could appeal to the State Allocation Board to have the application funded without having any new construction eligibility, but all of those appeals that have moved forward have failed. You could appeal to the State Allocation Board to allow you to utilize the Da Vinci Connect enrollments within your enrollment projection for new construction funding eligibility to fund the application. It would give you ample eligibility to fund the application. So we think there's an opportunity here, but ultimately that's a district and a board decision to make. So if there's no questions about that.
Jamie, can I ask just one clarifying question? I know earlier on there was a discussion as to whether or not we would have to make a material revision or approve a material revision to the charter. This would not require that. Is that what you're?
This would absolutely not require that. This would really be whether or not OPSC can administratively say that we actually do consider, we can include these enrollments, because it's ultimately the way they're interpreting the regulation. The short answer, without belaboring the point, is no. It absolutely would not require a revision to the charter agreement whatsoever, charter petition.
Jamie, if I may, what is required of us to pursue this in terms of, do we need an advocate? Do we need political, what do we need to pursue this?
I mean, I think initially you just need Jennifer and I to meet with OPSC, with the supervisors there, and really present them with the program, how often the kids are in class, what the schedule is, the facilities are being used 100% of the time, to see if OPSC can do this administratively, to see if they can allow us to, right, because they work as staff to the state allocation board. So to see if we can avoid the whole appeal process. And also to do that, that gives us some feedback from them as to whether or not they would support an appeal. So in that meeting, they would say, we can't do this administratively, but we think this is a slam dunk if you take it to the state allocation board. Or maybe they won't say slam dunk. Maybe they'll say, we think we might be able to support it, or we think we would be neutral. Or they might say, we would come out against this if you wanted to appeal it. We don't think that this is a go. So I think there's some really, in the short term, just a few hours of work to be done for Jennifer and I, since we're so familiar with the project and the application, to set up a meeting with the PSC to discuss it. And then after that, if you wanted to move forward with an appeal, then you would want to hire a lobbyist, or someone who's familiar with the state allocation appeal process, and they would move that forward for you. We would help them with writing the appeal narrative. It's a one-page document that needs to be filled out, but then you want the narrative and the background and the district's position to go behind that. They really come into play at the end of it. So we provide the information to support them, and then they have the relationships with the state allocation board members, with their staff. So about 2 weeks before the state allocation board meeting, they do those quick 15-20 minute sit downs with each member to try and get one of the members to commit to a motion, and to try and get enough other members to vote in a positive way for the district.
Thank you. What is our timeline? We have a short timeline here, I imagine.
Absolutely, yes. I am surprised that the Office of Public School Construction hasn't pushed back on this right now, but I think because it's COVID, they're giving districts a lot of room right now. So, but yes, I would encourage you to make a decision fairly soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I will do what I call my 50,000 foot level state school facility program overview, and talk to you about some opportunity that we see here for you. And then I will hand it over to Jennifer to talk about the audit and expenditure reporting for the state program, and then to finish it out with some funding through the California Energy Commission, which is the application is coming up in just a couple of days. There's some opportunity there as well. So we'll start with the new construction program, since that's what I just was referring to. So the new construction program, without going into too much detail, it provides funds on a 50-50 basis. And this is for new classrooms. So this is for additional square footage. You can also fund ancillary facilities like multi-purpose rooms and gyms. If they're considered undersized for your current student and current campus population, you can use this money to add more square footage to an existing multi-purpose room or gym, or to build a brand new one of the size that you need, the minimum size that you need. It's calculated, like I said before, using projected enrollments compared to capacity. You update it annually. And your new construction funding applications, like I said, have to demonstrate that they still have the eligibility for the project at the time it's processed. Now, an important thing to note here is that districts who don't have the eligibility in this current year are submitting new construction funding applications for projects when they add classrooms, because the state doesn't really know right now how to deal with this year where enrollments are really down because of COVID. And it's likely that when enrollments come back next year, districts are going to realize, an enrollment projection gain because of the way that enrollment projection is calculated. So if you're considering adding new classrooms, or if you have undersized ancillary facilities, then this would be an opportunity for you to consider, even in the absence of new construction eligibility in the current year. The next program is called, well, that's the minimum essential facilities that I just mentioned. I was jumping ahead of myself. That's the program that I mentioned that can expand your ancillary facilities. The seismic mitigation program, this is funded, this funding in particular is for buildings that fall on the AB 300 list in your district. It's to seismically retrofit buildings that are category 2 type. So this is an opportunity for you to explore that if you believe you have any seismic retrofitting that needs to be done. These applications move to the front of the line, and they are funded immediately. They're all funded on a 50-50 state and local match. The modernization program, you do have modernization eligibility. We reviewed your master plan, and your modernization eligibility is a little over 4 million. We're not sure what it is by site, but we're in the process of obtaining that information. This eligibility never expires, never goes away. It's reimbursable. So if you replaced a roof last year, you can submit a modernization application to get that money now. Jennifer will tell you all the hoops you should have jumped through if you want to get that money. But it provides state funds on a 60-40 basis. So the state gives you 60%, you match it with 40%. Your local funds can be GEO bond funds, developer fees, California Energy Commission money. Basically anything that's not state school facility program money can match state school facility program money. And the funding is based on, or your eligibility is based on pupils that are housed in portable classrooms that are more than 20, permanent classrooms more than 25. It doesn't expire. It can only go up. If your enrollments go up, it goes up. If you have new facilities that come of age, it goes up. It's reimbursable, like I said, for previously completed projects. You can also do mod like for like. And now this is how we funded the Dana Middle School. You have a certain amount of square footage that comes of age, and then you say, we want to reconstruct that same square footage somewhere else. And so you cannot add square feet with modernization funding, but for example, if you had 5 old portables that you wanted to demolish or take out of K-12 use and you wanted to build in 5 new permanent classrooms, then you could use modernization funding to do that. Aside from that, it can basically be used anywhere on the site. It can be used for track and field replacement. It can be used for roofs. Anything that's not major deferred maintenance, it can be used for. Facility hardship. Now this is a really interesting program, and a lot of consultants will shy away from it because they think the bar is too high, but we have projects funded through this program all the time. It's a wonderful program. These applications move directly to the line for funding. We submitted a few yesterday, in fact. So this helps you out when it's been determined that you have a critical need for pupil housing because of the condition of facilities presents an imminent health and safety threat to the students and the staff at the site. They're submitted, they're immediately processed. There are some requirements that you need to have. So you need to have DSA approved plans and specifications, Division of State Architect, or a Division of State Architect exemption if the project doesn't need DSA approval. You need an industry specialist report confirming the imminent health and safety threat, and then a letter of concurrence. So if it was a structural issue, you'd get concurrence from DSA. If it was an earthquake fault, you would get concurrence from the California Geologic Society. So it really depends on the project type. The 2 types of projects are either replacement or rehabilitation. There's a cost benefit analysis that you do. I won't go into any more boring details about the program specifics. I will just tell you that we believe that, and we've worked with the facility hardship team, that potentially the cooling towers at the 201 North Douglas location would qualify for facility hardship funding for replacement. Those cooling towers are not industry standard for a school. They were industry standard for what that building was before it was a school. And so we don't, the system is failing, and we've discussed it with the facility hardship team. They will not close down your site. They will not, unless the roof is about to collapse, they will not close down your site. But I think this is a great opportunity for that project, and there is bonding authority left to fund it. It is a 50-50 or a 60-40 program, depending on the project type. Financial hardship is a program that provides the state match as well as, your match as well as their match. So in order to be considered for financial hardship, you must have to be levying the maximum developer fee, and then you have to have one of the 4 conditions. You have to have current bonding indebtedness at 60% more or 60% or higher. You have to have had a successful registered voter bond election for at least the maximum allowed under Prop 39 within the previous 2 years, be a county office of ed, or have a debt capacity of 5 million or less. This is an important program to keep in mind as you move forward. So as you're passing bonds, issuing bonds, if you pass that 60% of bonding indebtedness, then you would qualify for financial hardship. And so when I was talking earlier about programs having a district match, so they'll give you 50% and you match it with 50%, or they give you 60, you match it with 40. If you're a financial hardship district, they give you 100%. The unfortunate part about that program is that you actually have to be out of money entirely for capital facilities. All right, I think that is a high-level overview. I'll end that just by saying that we go to all the state workshops. We follow the state legislation very closely. There are 2 bills that have been introduced for a 2022 K-14 state school facility bond. And both of those will very likely introduce new programs, including new rounds of CTE, new rounds of charter school funding. They'll refill the pots for new construction and modernization. There's going to be money in there for health and wellness, mental health and nutritional health. So we're following that closely. And of course, the more we know about future funding opportunities, we'll bring those to you as well. That was a mouthful. Jennifer, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you. So really high level auditing expenditures. Like we said, we like to get you the money and we want you to be able to keep it. And after in around 2017, the program changed. So the audit requirements changed and now it's more of a punitive process. So we work very closely with your staff to ensure that you're going through the proper processes for procurement, documenting your, expenditures, and then wrapping that up in a tight little bow and giving it to an auditor and then submitting it. So really high level. I love this stuff, but I know everybody else doesn't. I want to just show you, this is from the very beginning of the process, planning to the end. You can see, you can barely read it on the slide. There are so many requirements that your staff has to do now, but they're already doing it. We just have to gather the information, and Dave's team is great about tracking. They've successfully, most recently, passed a state audit that we just did for the charter. We're working with them for any other funding that you're in line. So we're good. I just want everyone to know that this is what your team's doing in the background and we're helping to support them. Now, if there aren't any questions on state funding, I wanted to jump over to another funding opportunity through the California Energy Commission. It's AB 841. It is coming up, like Jamie said, in the next day or two. And as of April 1st, the applications will be open for school districts. I am absolutely not going to read this slide. This is just content for you in your community to understand. There's 2 programs. HVAC, so a heating and air conditioning program, and then a plumbing program that you're eligible for. Most of, we believe all your sites qualify. And this first round is where you are qualifying at. So applications, like I say, open April 1st. We want to get all your sites in that application, submit it, and get you money for your HVAC or plumbing opportunities. This is not, like Jamie was saying, the state program's a reimbursement or like a matching program, a 50-50 or a 60-40. This is 100% funding for your projects. And it's not like you do it and then maybe some of it will be funded. The CEC has come out with a really great process where you assess it. You either, you can repair it or replace it. So that's the process. This first round that opens April 1st is for the assessment process. You submit that and then you get approved for the replacement or repair process. So it's helping your district in looking forward to those opportunities and not having to put out money if you haven't already for things that you might not get funding for, right? Absolutely, they're probably critical needs, but this process helps to support the district and not fronting the cash at, in the beginning.
Jennifer, if I may, would this be relevant to the cooler at 201 Douglas?
Unfortunately, that is the only site that does not qualify in this first round. There are, so it's $2 billion over the next 3 years that they're going to allocate. And the first 25% of that funding, correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, has to go to underserved communities. So in this first round, you qualified one of 5 ways. 4 were geographical in nature based on, forward geographical in nature. One is if you're within an Indian tribe reservation, and then the other 3 were based on the income level of the community that the site's specifically located in. The 5th qualification was the percentage of students on free and reduced lunch. So Juan Dienza, Juan Cabrillo, 138th Street, and Dana Middle all qualify in this first round. That's not to say that 201 might not qualify in the next round when they open it up to those schools that are within 500 feet of a specified transportation thoroughfare, and those that are within an area
from a 905 permitted place. So what I think this is where we come together with, we're not just looking at, a sector of state funding or a sector of this local funding. We look at everything collectively with your staff. So local, state, and federal money, how do we use all those pieces to come together to support your facility needs? So this is one where today like we were talking about, Jamie mentioned facility hardship for the 201 North Douglas. That is an opportunity, but it's either 60-40 or a 50-50. So you have to come up with your portion. We could, in a later round of AB 841, submit that and get some local money through the CEC, California Energy Commission, to help support your local match. So that's where we really try to maximize the opportunities that you have for your district and looking at any opportunity for facility funding and match it to your project. Perfect. And that is it for our presentation. Were there any questions? Wonderful. We thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm sure we'll be working with Dave and Mike later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Thank you, Jennifer. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Wow. Piece of cake, right, Dave? All right. We have another presentation that Blake, I'll turn to you, and you may actually turn to Dave as well.
I am going to turn straight to Dave, and he'll talk about the audit report.
So tonight we're going to ask the board to accept the 2019-2020 audit. In normal years, it's due by December 15th, or the board would have to accept it by December 15th. But because of COVID-19, the state has pushed that out to March 30th. And so we've asked our auditor, the lead auditor for our school district, Marcy Kearney, to present it. We've worked with Marcy and her team for a number of years. They also audit Da Vinci's books, and we are very happy to have Marcy and her team as part of this process. So with that, I'll welcome Marcy.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the introduction, Dave. I just wanted to give a big thank you to Mr. Wilson and Dr. Silvers and all the staff really at the district office. It's really been a tough year for the audit. Fortunately, prior to the school closures in March of 2020, we were able to at least conduct our school site visits for the audit. Because typically we go to the school sites, audit attendance procedures. Then we also go to the district office in the spring and then again in the fall. But with this year, the district office visit had to be conducted purely remotely, just for everyone's safety. So I know that was not an easy task. So thank you again for all of your hard work on that. And I'll go over the audit report. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for the report itself. Let me make sure. Okay, And can you see the report okay here? So I just wanted to emphasize it is for the 2019-20 fiscal year. So I know we're always looking in the past, so it's not to cover this school year yet. So this is for the one that ended in June 30th of 2020. And so as I mentioned, we were able to conduct the audit remotely and work with an online portal, and the staff did really great from the district side. I also wanted to point out that the financial statements belong to the Wiseburg Unified School District. The only thing that we as an audit firm own within this large document of 89 pages is the opinions. And so I will go over the audit opinions, but I also wanted to highlight some items in the financial statements themselves, just because they may be more sensitive in nature. So there were no new accounting pronouncements that took effect. But I will show you that this note 1K goes over the new accounting pronouncements that will take effect next year. Due to COVID, there was a 1-year delay. So that made it a little bit easier as far as implementation. But the key items that will be implemented for next year is inclusion of your fiduciary funds, which is really your ASB funds, into the district financials. And also the standards on leases and how those lease agreements are handled, both from a lessor and a lessee side. So again, you won't have to really worry about it for this year, but going forward in the future, it's just something to think about. And I'm going to jump around a bit, so apologize. But another one I wanted to mention that I think is a little bit sensitive is the business type activities or the proprietary fund, which reports your activities for your Wiseburg Child Development Center. So I know it looks like it has a negative, like it's running negative, it's 2.4 million in the negative, but honestly, the fund itself is operating fine. It's just that because there are salaries charged to the fund, you have to account for this net pension liability here. And that's really what that big ding is to that fund. Because that fund is a full accrual, meaning you have to report anything long-term assets or liabilities wise, whereas your normal fund financials, your general fund, cafeteria fund, they look at modified accrual, and so you don't see those long-term items on the face of the financials themselves. Were there any questions on that particular sensitive statement?
Marcy, just to clarify, that's the STRS liability, correct?
Yes, the net pension liability directly relates to STRS if you had any certificated personnel, and then CalPERS if you had for your classified personnel.
Now, this was last year. Has this been rendered moot due to our move to Right at School, handling our prior CDC functions?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand.
And probably for Dave.
Possibly.
So if we close out this fund, it would become a moot point, correct?
No. Sorry, I wasn't aware of any closure discussions yet, but as of June 30th of 2020, it was still in operation. So yeah, if you were to transfer it to, say, a child development fund that's within the school, within the district governmental activities versus business type activities, it would be reported a little bit differently there. But in this case, because it's seen as a business type activity, it's in an enterprise fund and it's reported full accrual.
I don't mean to belabor it. I guess, again, a question for Dave. As I understand it, this is a future liability based on employment of staff that we no longer have employed in these positions. So would this now be moot because we don't have that future liability?
Well, this is as of June 30th, 2020. So it was, we did have employees for that entire year. So this is a true reflection of that liability. But moving forward, if we decided to close out that fund because Right at School is going to take over, this then becomes moot.
Yeah, as Dave mentioned, the only reason really that you have this liability existing is because you do have salaries charged to this particular fund. So if you didn't have any salaries, then you wouldn't have that related net pension liability as well.
Sorry, Marcy, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No problem.
Dave, so I guess the question is, so 21, 22, this is moot at this point, our current circumstance.
If we close the fund out entirely, yes, correct.
Why would we not close the fund out entirely? That's my question, I guess.
Well, we're still going to run a preschool program, and it's still going to have salaries charged to a preschool program. So if we continue with that, with this fund, which is, and Marcy can correct me if I'm wrong, but because it's a enterprise fund, it has to be Fund 63 or a subset of Fund 63. And so if we continue to have any salaries, anybody paid out of that fund, we'd still have to have this fund opened, whether it be preschool or school age care.
Yes, because the activity is a business type activity, that's where it gets pulled into that full accrual. If you had a fund where you were receiving significantly more governmental funding, federal and state, then it would be served more like the other funds that you have, which I can show you. Where your general fund here, you do have liabilities, but again, it's your more current liabilities. You don't have anything long-term within your funds. And you'll notice that these agree more to the interim budgets that you're used to approving. It's not until the end of the year financial statements are prepared and compiled that you see the government-wide activity. And that's where these huge liabilities come in, where you see all of your bonded debt, and also within that long-term liabilities line, you also see your net pension liability and your OPEB, which is your other than pension employee benefits. Any other questions on the financial statements that I could kind of help answer? As I mentioned, the financial statements are that of the district, and the district management, Dave and Dr. Silvers, they take full responsibility over the financial statements themselves. I will go over the audit opinion letters. So the main key one is on page 1, and I'll scroll down a little bit so you can see the opinion right here. So essentially, the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respect and in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, which essentially translates to a good, clean audit opinion. So no issues there. I will also mention that because you receive governmental funds, because you receive a large amount of federal funds, and because you run a K through 12 program, there's 3 additional audit opinion letters. And so I'd like to scroll to the summary page. Excuse me. This summary page gives a good kind of summary of those other 3 audit opinions that I mentioned. So over the financial statements, because you're a government agency, we also have to apply government auditing standards. So in that sense, we do not provide an audit opinion over internal controls. However, we do look at internal controls because we understand those processes can affect your financial reporting. So if there were any instances of non-compliance or any instances of, say, a significant deficiency or material weakness to the financial statements, because of internal controls, we would make that known. However, in this case, again, good, clean audit opinion, no instances of any sort of significant deficiencies or improvements that are necessary there. So yeah, big thumbs up. And then for federal awards, because you receive a large amount of federal funding and you expend more than $750,000, we have to go through a federal single audit. So this particular year, we looked at the special education programs. They were significant and hadn't been tested in years prior. More than likely in the next year and going forward, we'll see the ESSER funding and some of that COVID CARES Act funding being tested because it's all brand new and the requirements are different there. But again, a good, clean audit opinion, no internal control issues over the financial reporting for federal awards, and also no issues of non-compliance there. And then with state awards, again, with being a K-12, you have to go through a laundry list of items that we have to test. So mainly attendance, because that contributes to your funding, and also the unduplicated pupil count that plays into your LCFF funding sources. So that's where those school site visits are so important. And then also, I mean, Dave knows there's a bunch of other financial related items that go into that as well.
But again, good, clean audit opinion, no issues there, no issues of non-compliance. Really, this is overall best kind of grade A you can get for a school district audit report. So I do think the business department and also the program people, you know, being at the school sites, I know it's not easy going through all the compliance audit requirements that us auditors have, you know, hassle them for. So I do want to say thank you to everybody, really the district that helped facilitate the audit.
Any questions for Marcy?
Marcy, any findings this year?
No audit findings. Again, good, clean audit opinions all around, and no significant issues or deficiencies, no issues of non-compliance found.
Well, Marcy, thank you very much. Obviously, it's always fun to get good, clean reports, good news. So thank you for your report. I guess we'll wish you a good evening at this point then.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys have a great evening as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marcy.
Thank you.
And Dave, we're still in good hands, my friend. Thank you very much. Yet again, another clean report. We've had a state report, state audit. We've had a private audit. Again, clean report. The best you can get, as she, in her words. Kudos to you and the team, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to the team.
For sure. Thank you, Dave. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dave.
We have one more special presentation. But wait, there's more. Dr. Silvers, please.
All right. So, just really lucky to have a partnership with the Rotary. In this case, it's the Hawthorne LAX and Lenox Rotary. And every year they provide an opportunity for teachers, staff to be able to apply for mini grants. And so this year, Tom Quintana and Doug Kraus will be sharing our mini grant award winners. I have them, but I think you all are going to actually present them. Is that right, Doug? Or do you want me to, I see you on here, or do you want me to go through the awards? Did you want to share them?
We're ready to do it. We can do
Great.
it for sure.
Go for it. Thank you. It's good to see you.
All right. All right. Well, thank you again, everybody. And it's always good to be back in Wiseburn. I did well, I guess, and it's good to be back, giving back. So real quick, Hawthorne LAX Lenox Rotary Club, we've been around for 95 years, actually, this year, almost as long as you. And, we do things all around the world, but of course we specialize local, and education is one of the foundations of Rotary. So this is part of something we do annually, and we've been doing this for a couple decades now. So we have 3 grants to award tonight, and let me read them off real quick for you. So again, we do this every year, and to all the teachers that may or may not be listening, we like to give it out. So, I mean, it always is good to apply, right? You can't win if you don't try. So first from Cabrillo, one of my alma maters, Grace Huzvika, with a project title of Diversity, Inclusion, and Self-Empowerment. And so that's an award of $125. Next, Amanda Sass with the Success Learning Center, with a project title of Developing Life Skills Using Technology. And that's an award of $205. And then lastly, Teresa Tibbetts and Stacy Porter of the Success Learning Center with a project title of Adafruit Circuit Playground for Computer Science Elective. And that's an award of $200. So thank you all for your time. Thanks to the teachers for applying. We'll be getting you some certificates for the teachers, and I'll work with Wendy on that, and a check. Why not, right? So thank you all. Have a good night. Hope you get to bed before midnight.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks.
See you all. Thank you very much.
Doug. Thank you to LAX, Hawthorne LAX Rotary. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Great to have community members and Rotary giving back, and congratulations to our winners. Excellent. And thank you for applying. You don't apply, you don't win, and you do, sometimes you do. So good for you. All right. Just one final question, Dr. Silvers and Mr. Wilson, relative to our first presentation. Will you be coming back with recommendations to us on what to proceed with?
Dr. Gold, you didn't get all of that in the presentation? I'm just kidding. Yes, we will. We absolutely we'll discuss and come back. We wanted to do more of a global look at what options we have, and then maybe parse it down a little bit to what we have available now. I know Julie Williams is also on the call. She's sort of managing and tracking as well, so that we could make an informed recommendation for you.
All right, thank you. All right, let us move now to information section from the board. Let's turn to our Vice President, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. Good evening, everyone. I would like to begin with sharing that our K-8 is back. Yesterday, Dr. Silvers and I visited Dana Middle School, and we experienced the wonderful return of our students. It truly brought me a lot of joy to see the smiles of the students, the teachers, the staff, and the parents. It's incredibly rewarding and inspiring to witness the uplift and excitement taking around our school sites. I certainly want to take this opportunity to thank our site principals, teachers, staff, and the parents. Our maintenance and operations, our aides, our nurses, our food services folks, for all their hard work and effort, as they are the true backbone of our successful opening. Additionally, I want to recognize our district superintendent, our cabinet, and staff for their leadership and guidance through this unprecedented pandemic situation. It was through their leadership and foresight that we began preparations to reopen last year on June 1st, 2020, and many subsequent meetings thereafter, forming the Wiseburn Reopening Advisory Partnership, known as WRAP, that consisted of board members, community leaders, PTA members, parents, site administrators, teachers, staff, maintenance and operations. And as a result, we have been ready for these first days of the 2021 school year. So to everyone involved, thank you so much for making this happen. With that, I have a few comments to speak about tonight with regards to our high school reopening. Last week, I attended the Da Vinci board meeting via Zoom, as many of our community members and families did who wanted to listen to the public hearing on Da Vinci Phase 2 reopening plan. Unfortunately, the majority of the community, including myself, were very disappointed that there was no option or choice, for that matter, for meaningful instruction. As I reflected back on the meeting, the recent flood of emails that we've received, the numerous calls that I've had with families, parents, and community members, and the recent discussions with students, I certainly understand their anxiety, their frustration, and anger regarding the status of our high school reopening. From what I gathered, it seems that the missing pieces are the following. Both Wiseburn and Da Vinci are not aligned. This has been exhibited in the K-8, where we provided a choice for in-person instruction. However, the Da Vinci high schools remain distance learning. Parents and students feel they've had no input. They feel ignored. Da Vinci started these discussions back in August 2020, but they never formed a committee or offered families an opportunity to be involved or provide input with regards to the reopening. Communication, transparency. Many believe that the Phase 2 reopening plan caused much confusion among the families, parents, and students, as it did not offer any in-person instruction. And the lack of planning, many are concerned that the necessary steps and protocols to reopen were not taken. Additionally, last week, at last week's meeting, the community, particularly, I'm going to identify them, Mr. Russell Kill, Mr. Eddie Urinda, and Mr. John Koppelman, all spoke and highlighted the fracture between the Wiseburn and Da Vinci partnership. The Senate Bill 126, as we've discussed, the pandemic and the turnover of DV board members as a result of that Senate Bill 126 has certainly added to this fissure. And you heard from Russell Kill tonight. In my opinion, both Wiseburn and Da Vinci must revisit our Magna Carta and our MOU and work to preserve the spirit of that agreement and the high schools for our community. At the end, we're a unified school district. And we have a beautiful Wiseburn High School facility because of the Wiseburn community. To the community and the public speakers tonight, thank you for your public comments and for always advocating on behalf of our students. We are listening to the issues you have raised and to the concerns you have brought forward recently and tonight. To my colleagues in the Da Vinci board, we have listened to the community. We must meet. We must work together collaboratively to propel forward. We owe it to the community, to our families, and most importantly, to our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Mr. Banuelos.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Goldman. I have 3 comments tonight. 3 areas I'd like to share my input and feedback, and also no celebration. First one I'd like to get started with is Dana Middle School. I would like to say thank you to all the Wiseburn Unified School District team for working together to provide our students an option to return to in-person instruction at Dana Middle School. Thank you to district administration, teachers, custodial staff, parents, focus groups, and of course, the patience of our students. Thank you so much. Thank you for working on and preparing many, many drafts of what a plan would look like. A lot of hard work and energy was invested into studying these scenarios so that we could make an informed decision. Having a choice is extremely important to all members of the community because one item does not fit all. I'm excited for the reopening of the school. Personally, in my family, we've opted for our 7th grader to stay in distance learning and be remote. Again, one option does not fit everyone. So I'd like to, again, thank the staff for providing and studying 1,000 different class schedules and logistics for in-person, hybrid, and distance learning, again, as it was a tremendous challenge. I am grateful for all of your hard work. I know it doesn't happen by itself or on its own, and my immense gratitude to everybody that participated in that. Next item I'd like to touch base on is college acceptances. I would like to say congratulations to our current Da Vinci Science, Design, and Communication seniors as college acceptance letters are coming in. This is an exciting and anxious time for all of them as they ponder the possibilities to make their choice. Ultimately, they will select the right college they feel is the best fit for them. Our students are being accepted at these colleges and universities in part due to the great work and preparation they receive from our elementary and middle schools. So thank you to our staff and teachers at Anza, Cabrillo, 138th Street, DV Connect, and Dana. Thank you for developing and establishing their learning foundations while they are with you. Thank you to staff and teachers at Da Vinci Science, Design, and Communications while they are with you for their high school years. Again, a huge debt of gratitude and thank you. I would like to also comment on my 3rd item is on the Da Vinci reopening plans. In education and in schools, as in life, there are many moments to celebrate, such as these Dana Middle School reopenings and college acceptances, just as there are challenges to overcome. One of those challenges are the Da Vinci reopening plans. I would like to thank all the parents and community members that reached out to me with concerns over the Da Vinci reopening plans as it was being rolled out by Da Vinci administration. I would like to be clear that I do not agree with the plans as they were rolled out. I attended all 3 of the school site presentations, Science, Design, and Communications on March 17th, as well as the most recent Da Vinci board meeting last night on March 24th. From my perspective, there is a lack of choice for parents, students, and yes, some teachers, for which full distance learning is just not working. This is not a plan for students to return for in-class instruction as has been requested and expected. What was presented to the Da Vinci board was a limited plan for campus activities and visits. and not for a return to live in-person student to teacher instruction as is allowable and doable under current CDC and LA County Department of Public Health guidelines. The Da Vinci Board was in essence presented an option for limited campus activities or to remain in full distance learning. Given those options, the limited campus activities plan was the better choice. The real challenge in question is, where is the detailed plan to show how live in-person classroom instruction would look like come April? At Thursday's Da Vinci Board meeting, we heard that an in-person plan had been developed sometime in August. If so, I have not seen it, nor has it been presented to the community, parents, students, and all stakeholders. I would very much still like to see that plan and a timetable to return to full in-class instruction with a timeline to implement. With such a plan in hand, one can truly weigh the options, solicit input, and find creative ways to work it out. This way, there are options. If your student is doing well, perhaps even thriving in full distance learning, they can stay in that model. If they are not, then there would be a hybrid option or options to address those needs. Over the coming weeks, months, and years, there will be many more conversations and challenges to overcome. One thing that we must focus on is communication to align expectations. Communication between the Weisburn and Da Vinci boards and both boards to the community, the Weisburn district boundaries, and all the areas we serve. I would like to recommend a few things we can do together and others independently. One, quarterly meetings. Our MOU between Weisburn and Da Vinci requires these meetings. I think we can calendar those meetings at the same time that both boards calendar their regular scheduled meetings for the year and stick to those dates. Second is a standing board update. Perhaps a district representative from each of our schools can be invited to each respective board meeting to share an in-person update, or perhaps submit a written update on activities of mutual interest and coordination to start a dialogue. Third, individual board member communications. Thank you to those Da Vinci board members with whom I had an opportunity to speak with on this topic. I look forward to continuing with existing board member relationships and also partnerships, as well as developing new ones. And lastly, I would like for our Weisburn School District to consider the following. With our Weisburn Superintendent to study the position of a charter school communications liaison. Title yet to be determined if that's in fact what we'd like to do. This could be an existing staff member with added duties and dedicated time. Or it could be creating a new position altogether for Weisburn. I would like to see what that could look like and a time frame for review and for this board to consider. Thank you. I certainly look forward to continuing this conversation and what it looks like moving forward. Thank you. That's all for me, Dr. Goldman.
Thank you, Roger. Well said. Thank you very much. Mr. Mora.
Good evening, everyone. Both Nelson and Roger spoke very well on the subject. I agree with both of them tremendously on the options for the high school. I want to tell everyone this isn't a simple issue. COVID is a complex issue from the beginning. Bringing kids back with COVID is a super complex issue for the whole society, not just ours. So this isn't about one person being right and another person being wrong. It's really a conversation about choices. And I would like to hear more conversation from both the Da Vinci board and from the CEO, Dr. Wunder, about mental health of students, about social development and well-being of students, and that being the forefront of the conversation. I mean, this is the real issue here. It's not just about sending kids to school, it's about kids' mental health and where are they? And I feel it's very important to consider that some kids really need to get back to the classroom for their own health, not just mental health, but social development. And we've heard it before from other parents. We've kind of lost a year here and kids are feeling the pain about it. So I just ask that in addition to what Roger and Nelson have said, that we really focus in on these items. and make it about the kids and mental health and their development and not about other things. We care very much about the teachers. We do in Weisburn, we do in Da Vinci. We want them to be healthy. We want this to be done safely. Everybody's had an opportunity, to my knowledge, from both Da Vinci and Weisburn in early March to get vaccinated. So those that chose to be vaccinated have. And hence by April 12th, I don't believe that should be an issue. So that's, just want to clarify that too, that that opportunity has been presented to both sides. That's all I want to say on that issue. And we will continue to work hard. We didn't build something so special to just have it fall apart. We're going to work hard to make it work. I also want to commend on Dr. Silvers, the principals, and all our teachers for the openings of Dana and all the elementary schools. There's just a lot of positive energy, a lot of excitement, and very appreciative. I also want to thank the custodians, all the grounds folks, everybody who's helping, the aides, everybody who's pitching in to make it all work. This has been a team effort, and we're very grateful for that. That's all I have for today. Thank you, Dr. Gold.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. Thank you very much. Ms. Kaneda.
Well, good evening, folks. Even though I'm a still picture here in front of you this evening, I'm definitely attending in person. Just as an aside, I had some surgery recently, which, believe me, the picture on the screen looks a lot better than I do right now. So I appreciate your patience for looking at a still photograph this evening. I do have a few comments I want to make. First of all, as I think we've mentioned in the past, or I've mentioned, I'm really proud to be part of the Weisburn community. I'm really proud to be part of the Weisburn School District, part of the Weisburn School Board, my colleagues that are on the screen this evening, and those of the hundreds of others who are working every day as teachers and aides and groundskeepers and maintenance folks, and all our parents, all our students. My goodness, we have a wonderful community who cares deeply about community, about their students, and about the schools that we support to provide education. You know, we're proud of Da Vinci also, as Israel was pointing out a few moments ago. You know, there's times in families, there's times in relationships where things are tense. And right now it's very clear that the relationship between Weisburn Unified and the Da Vinci Charter program is tense. I appreciate at the board meeting last week, the Da Vinci board meeting, that both Brian Meath and Raul Ochoa spoke up. Dennis Meath, that we all know as a previous Weisburn board member, or many of us know and served as fellow board members, spoke up and said that he knows us all as well, and he realizes that we've kind of lost our way. We've lost our relationship way, and we need to mend that. And I think we all want to do that. And Raul, as a very new Da Vinci board member, spoke up and said he wasn't satisfied with the plan, the Da Vinci reopening plan as it was presented to the community. So we'll see if his request for a plan to open at least partially in person is respected by the Da Vinci board, and perhaps there'll be some plan forthcoming, or at least a discussion of a plan. I know we want to work together. I know we all want to be successful together. I especially respect the community speaking out on behalf of their own needs as families and their own needs as community members. And I really respect Helen Martinez coming forward this evening to discuss something very openly about the social emotional adjustments that our students are facing and our families are facing after this time of COVID, and trying to learn and function in a totally different way. Those are, excuse me, very real concerns. And I know we respect those concerns. I want to make sure we acknowledge them as real. And I think many families are facing similar concerns, and I really respect Helen for coming forward and speaking about that. On another topic, I know this evening we have a resolution before the board speaking about that talks to the AAPI, the xenophobia against the Asian and Pacific Islander as a race and a part of our community. Most of you know that my husband is Asian, father of my second out of the 4 sons. Of our 2 sons together are Hapas, right? They're half. And it is amazing in our country that every race seems to have something against it. You can be any race at all, and there's something wrong with it right now. It's especially disturbing, and this one is very personal for my family. Equity is so important, and just as the social emotional needs we were talking about earlier are important, so is equity, so is equality. There's a lot of forms of equity, right? There's racial, there's sexual, there's income, there's opportunity. And I think as a board and as a community, we are all very strongly supportive of the various forms of equity, and we work hard as an educational institution to preserve equity. And I'm proud tonight that we have that resolution on our agenda. I wanted to say just one more thing, that I'm very proud of our district once again. We, in the spirit of equity, of course, provided vaccine opportunities for all of our staff and teachers who were interested to participate. I know Da Vinci, I believe, I don't know, I think, but I believe Da Vinci provided the same opportunities for their teachers and staff as well. So in the spirit of equity and in the spirit of cooperation, we want to work together, and we are open, all of us, to those ways to work together. Roger gave some very specific suggestions. Nelson gave some very specific suggestions for ways to open up lines of communication or widen the lines of communication, at any rate, between Weisbord and Da Vinci. And I look forward to participating in those as well. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here for a minute, and I had eye surgery, so my eyes are covered with ointment. So to make sure I can read them all. And anyway, I think that's enough. I think we've all said much of the same theme here, and I respect the comments from all, and thank our community for their huge participation and speaking out on their needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you for your wise words. Everybody's tonight. It is a privilege to serve and be on this board with you all. It's a privilege to be working with the cabinet. So kudos on the Dana opening. Kudos for providing options for our students to stay at home and continue distance learning so we can continue to serve our community and the choice and provide that choice. There were a couple comments tonight that I heard tonight before I make my formal comments that were shared. Relative first, the grab and go lunches. Dr. Silvers, I would ask that we thread the needle between making it safe to take a lunch, but not requiring our students to take a lunch, which I imagine is our intent. Any thoughts you have for us there?
Yes, I know that the challenge is numbers, and there is a choice at the middle school. I think our elementary students, and we've actually received quite a bit of compliments on the fact that all students are able to grab a lunch. I understand there's food waste, and we want to take a look at food waste and the quality of the food. So I would say, other than agreeing to some degree that we need to look at it, I'll have to come back to you with an answer.
I appreciate that, and obviously we certainly respect families who don't want to waste. Another comment was made tonight was on the crossing guard at 135th. I thought that was some very thoughtful comments relative to a line for. Is that being serviced, and do we have plans for that moving forward? Is that just an omission? Someone's supposed to show up and didn't, or kind of where are we?
Yeah, so we did reach out to the company. We had planned this, 2 weeks ago or so. I know Dave worked with the company. We were supposed to have someone there. We've since been reaching out and are expecting someone there in the morning. So if they're not, email Dave. And if anybody's out there listening, feel free to let Dave know as soon as someone's not there. But I'll circle around too. I mean, we'll be there and check on it and make sure that we get that covered in the next couple of days.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate those comments. I appreciate, Nelson, you going to the opening and visiting the classrooms. I was able to get there early yesterday and then late, so I saw early drop off and late pickup. And again, fun to see Dana and joining the rest of our schools open. Thank you to our teachers, our staff, our everybody involved. It is a team effort, as Mr. Morris said. So I have three main comments tonight, as we all have had. The first and most important, in alignment with Joanne's comments, is to condemn the recent discrimination, racial animus, and even violence against the Asian American Pacific Islander community. I can only speak for myself, but I believe all of us on the board would stand in solidarity against bigotry and hatred of all kinds. I believe our country overall, and our district in particular, is richer, more innovative, and more alive and engaging because of our diversity. It's embedded in our assurances as created by our community. And when I last checked, Wiseburn was the second most diverse district among the 80 in LA County. So let us be welcoming and inclusive of our AAPI community and people of all backgrounds. Diversity should not be denigrated, but rather celebrated. And that's what we intend to do here at Wiseburn. I also would encourage us to send a note to our community, Dr. Silvers, beyond just this meeting, so more than those who are witnessing tonight can hear this message. My second comment is regarding the pandemic and the request to everyone to please remain vigilant, wear a mask, and refrain from carefree social gatherings. The pandemic is moving in the right direction, but it is not yet over. Case rates are increasing in many states across the country. We need just a few more months of vigilance where we can reach herd immunity, but we're not there yet. So please, please continue to wear a mask, respect distancing guidelines, wash your hands, and refrain from gatherings if you can. If you choose otherwise, and especially over the coming spring break, we really want to protect our staff. We really want to protect our teachers. Please know if you do choose to gather or travel over the spring break period, know that you may be asymptomatic. Please quarantine for 10 days, contact your principal upon return for remote options, and prevent the spread of the virus before returning to school or other activities that may put our community at risk. Ironically, with that said, we are really moving in a great direction, and hopefully with our protocols, we will continue to do so. So if we remain safe, thoughtful, slow to fully re-engage, and able to continue the path towards the yellow tier as we move to orange, the yellow is the lowest tier in California's blueprint for a safer economy, I would ask Dr. Silvers and the entire team that we consider one more shift to a more fully opening of our schools with more in-person instructional time, acknowledging the challenges this poses. This is not an edict from as far as I'm concerned, but if in fact we find we can provide more open opportunities for more time in school with more instruction to those who choose it, and still maintain the benefit of the options for our distance learners, I would encourage us to explore that, please. Finally, as to the Da Vinci reopening, I appreciate, as we all have shared, what a vital issue this is to so many in our community. We had a more connected and more direct voice as members of the Da Vinci board prior to the passage of SB 126, which has been mentioned a number of times tonight. The absence of this inhibited our oversight role as it precluded members from our board sitting on theirs as originally designed. Now, there may be an opportunity to seek a carve out here for the future, and if so, we may pursue it. It also appears that the DV reopening process included aggregated survey responses in their meeting, making findings for the high school, which is our primary concern, unclear. And a process at the start of the year, as I believe one of my colleagues mentioned, that throughout appeared to have little community input in their decision-making. As such, we would absolutely seek a different path forward. And as finances are always challenged at schools, and that our seniors have had so little time, or really have so little time left for an on-campus experience after so long without one, I admittedly am disappointed that there was not mention of consideration of at least bringing seniors back in person to finish their year, which as I understand it, and although Da Vinci is very creative and they may get around this, but as I understand it, not bringing any one cohort or class back meant forfeiting, in their case, nearly $600,000 in in-person instruction from COVID relief grant funds. Now, dollars alone, of course, are not the reason to do something, but when combined with the opportunity to give seniors their last quarter with more normality at school, to me, they're not irrelevant. Let us also acknowledge the many great practices and outcomes of Da Vinci schools, as my colleagues have done tonight, and the belief that both organizations really do care about education and our students. Think about the great practices at Da Vinci: real world learning, project-based learning, career pathways, the move to a mastery-based model, college education, 98% of students having an option because they've completed AG requirements to go to college, and more. In fact, more than 1,000 students are striving to get in every year when many local high schools in our community are struggling with declining enrollment. DV has been a gem, and Wiseburn is a gem. That does not mean we condone or necessarily agree with recent decisions regarding reopening or lack of community input. But I do wish to say, I believe, and to use a trite expression, we should not throw out the baby with the bathwater. There is truly much to celebrate at Da Vinci. Let us find a way forward that keeps us working on what is working so well, yet builds a bridge to the future to address governance, integration, articulation, and perhaps most importantly, community connection and input. And I believe it is fair to say we on the Wiseburn board remain committed to rectifying this and finding a positive path forward. This is why, prior to the current return to school issues, at the start of my tenure as president just about 3 months ago, we engaged the services of a consulting group to help facilitate and foster our future vision. This is just one path that Mr. Meath mentioned. Thank you, Brian, and for his comments and reach out here. The winds of the pandemic have shifted dramatically over the past year. We at Wiseburn potentially planned not to reopen at all at one point, but the science informed, the data evolved, and we changed course. I earlier asked Dr. Silvers to consider yet another change in expanding our reopening should prevailing positive COVID winds continue. In the same regard, I would ask Da Vinci to also watch the data and remain open to possibility, remain open to revisiting plans once again as we move forward. As my peers have shared, it is important, it's vital to maintain positive relationships with our partners, community members, and friends at DV. As such, we will continue our conversations with DV Board President, Dr. Brand, and DV CEO, Dr. Wonder, both of whom I've dialogued with this week, and we maintain positive relationships. We will continue to work on a positive path forward. We are dedicated to this, we are dedicated to solving this, and we will not stop until we do so. So to our community and those of you watching now, thank you for your passion, for being such caring parents and guardians of your kids, and also for your patience as we work through the current challenges to create a better, more unified future for us all. Thank you. With that said, let us now move to our cabinet and move to the Chief Business Official, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. You had inquired about E-rate savings, and what E-rate is, it's a government subsidy to make internet and internet connectivity more affordable for other governmental agencies. And so right now we currently have 3 E-rate contracts. We have 2 with Spectrum and Time Warner, and 1 with the Los Angeles County Office of Education, and they're all for internet services. I want to give you the total cost before the E-rate discount is applied. So those 3 contracts before E-rate equate to $68,147. We do get a 60% discount. So in the end, Wiseburn on that $68,000 3 contracts, we only paid $27,259 for a total E-rate savings of almost $41,000. And so that's why we continue to participate in E-rate. And I believe last meeting we had asked the board to approve our E-rate consultant, and so it's definitely worth that cost.
I think the consultant was about $4,000, so that's a pretty good return on investment. Well done.
Yep. Secondly, I would like to piggyback on the facilities presentation we saw earlier. I know today Julie Williams, our new Director of Maintenance and Operations, walked our facilities with a firm called P2S Engineering. And what they are going to do, or what they did, is they're assessing our HVAC units to see if we can in fact qualify for that AB 841 funding, which the application is actually becoming available April 1st. So we're doing what we can to see if we qualify and get our foot in the door. So more on that to be continued. And then lastly, later in the meeting, we're asking the board to renew 3 of our piggyback contracts. And I just want to give some context to this. So in 2014-2015 fiscal year, that was the first year that we had used these piggybacks. And the amount of piggyback money received to date is $598,000. This fiscal year alone, we received $53,000. And all these funds get deposited into our Fund 14 deferred maintenance. And so it's definitely been worthwhile. I believe this is the third renewal year out of a possible of 5. And I do want to mention that we do have some needs. Our vehicle fleet is getting very old. In fact, the van that we have, I have asked staff not to drive it anymore. It's become unsafe. The steering linkage is not good. It's like I said, it's unsafe. And so with that, I think I'm going to ask the board, can Dr. Silverman and I do some research to see if we can, in fact, update some of our vehicle fleet. Very good. Okay. Thank you. If there's any questions, that's all I have.
I don't have any questions, Dave. I just want to commend you on the great audit, the results of that audit report, you and your team. It really shows your dedication and certainly fluency with the systems that you support. And congratulations, and please pass that to your team as well. Thank you.
Joanne, I appreciate that. I can't take all the accolades. It's definitely a team, a team involvement. And if it wasn't for the great team that I have, it wouldn't go as smoothly as it did. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Let us move to the Director of Psychological Services, Ms. Mazzarella.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to share that we are in the final stages of moving from the CDC sites, whatever preschool materials we had, moving them over to the Del Air site. Tomorrow, in fact, we have a big move of materials from Cabrillo over to Del Air. And I really want to thank Julie Williams and the maintenance staff. They've been on it, and it's been a really challenging time. Of course, we're trying to reopen schools and all of these things that we're doing with trying to keep everyone safe and the cleaning schedules and all of that. And even through all of that, they've been very responsive, and they have been really helpful and not even grumbly about, like, we got to move all these things. So it's been really great. And I just wanted to thank them. So that is all I have.
Thank you, Peggy, and thank you again. Thank you very much. From our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Dr. Dugal.
Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to give an update to our community and our parents that the Right at School childcare program is going to be starting on April 12th at all 4 of our sites at 138, Anza, Cabrillo, and Dana. Dana registration just opened up yesterday, so middle school parents, please don't forget to sign up. There is programming for the hybrid days as well as the asynchronous days. There's before school care, after school care, and full day care. For parents, for additional information, you can visit our website, go under enrollment, and then it'll take you to the Right at School registration landing page. So once again, April 12th, right after spring break, the childcare program will be opening up at all 4 of our sites, and we encourage parents who haven't registered yet, so please don't forget to register. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Dugal, and exciting times there as well.
Neil, sorry, and I just want to comment also. Thank you, Dr. Dugal, for sure. And Blake, I know this was something, being able to reopen a childcare option for our community was something so high on your list of priorities. And what a wonderful, how serendipitous this is. All of our schools, our elementary schools in Dana are now open and will now have a childcare option for our families who choose to exercise that option. I am so proud of all involved that are making this happen, and so grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you, Joanne. Let us move to our Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, Dr. Harvick.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. Last week, we went through the final phase of our LA County Arts Grant. In order to receive the funding, we go through a site visit. So in the past, Jillian McCarthy, who was the program manager for the LA County Arts Education Collective, would walk around and be able to speak with students and typically see the great work that's been going on with our arts team and the funding that we've been provided. And this year, a little more difficult. So Sarah Nitsos, who's been guiding this project, put together a presentation for Jillian and walked her through it. It was outstanding. Hoping that you can all see it. Maybe we can send it to you, but this was a outstanding presentation. It had our dance nights with parents dancing and kids. It had a Padlet with all the student art and parent art that matched it because they were in on this. And really that funding that was only supposed to be $15,000 this year ended up being $21,000. So Dave, you can look forward to that check coming through, because Jillian was really taken back by this presentation and just what Sarah had to share. So we're just so thankful to LA County. We do have our grant proposal in for next year requesting $25,000 to keep it going, along with the support that we get from WEF. We also had our LCAP committee meeting last week. This is one of a few meetings that we'll be having. In fact, between now and May, we have 5 more stakeholder meetings going on for this brand new local control accountability plan, 3-year plan that we're putting together. Dave's been working on it with me. And so we hope to, and our whole cabinet actually. So we're looking forward to putting that together, bringing it to you in May. Just a big thank you to everyone that attended that meeting. We had stakeholders from our DLAC, which is our English language acquisition committee for the district. We had parents from all sites. We had our board represented there, and Ms. Mazzarella was able to bring 2 representatives from the local SELPA. So we felt it was a very good representation at that meeting. So that's my report. Thank you.
Comments, anyone? All right, well, thank you. Let's move to our superintendent, Dr. Silvers. Dr. Silvers, I couldn't hear you, sorry.
All right, how about now? Thank you, Dr. Goldman. I do want to share that we have been working on a community message that we're going to send out, really looking at anti-hate, particularly towards our Asian American and Pacific Islander community members and those in the greater community. And so that we'll look to send that out here in the next day or so. I have quite a few comments today. Circumstances continue to evolve for school districts and communities amidst the pandemic. First I want to share that Los Angeles County continues to move in the right direction related to COVID-19 case rates and the associated metrics. While I'm hopeful that these numbers continue to move in the right direction, as Dr. Goldman shared, I also encourage continued vigilance and adherence to the safety measures. Good hand hygiene and wearing face coverings are critical elements that continue to protect us and our loved ones and overall community health. Today marks the first day that LA County reached the orange tier of the Blueprint for a Safer Economy. It's quite a difference from just a few months ago. Currently, our adjusted case rate is at an all-time low of 3.1 per 100,000 residents, and our positivity rate is at a mere 1.5%. Additionally, the county continues to take giant strides towards providing vaccinations for those that want and or need them. I want to talk a little bit about town hall meetings that we held prior to reopening. The reopening of our schools for in-person and live instruction required a concerted effort over time from many stakeholders. I had the chance to attend nearly all of the town hall meetings that were held at our school sites. I was thankful for the quality of the information and the presentation that was delivered by our site administrators, their ability to answer questions from our families, and their availability. I also want to thank our families for taking time out of their busy schedules to attend and ask important questions, a lot of them related to health and safety. Many families also spent time prior to actual reopening to join our administrators at each site for quote unquote open houses or walkabouts. The pandemic has lasted over a year. Our schools have been closed for over a year, and some of our students have never stepped foot on the campuses that they would be or could be attending. Middle school reopening. We can officially share that as of yesterday, all 5 of our schools, as was shared, including the Success Learning Center, have reopened for in-person learning. I share with our trustees that this work has been thoughtful and methodical, and of course, the complexities of such a task require a lot of moving pieces. While I have such an admiration for the job of all of our staff at the elementary schools during their reopening, today I want to highlight the middle school. Specifically, I want to thank our leadership, Mrs. Clark, Mr. Coronet, for creating the safe space for our families to return and for supporting the staff through the process. Second, I want to highlight the work of Mr. Okasinski and Ms. Engie for their work on recreating a master schedule and rescheduling approximately 1,000 students. This feat is one that usually takes months of preparation, deliberation, and they did it in just a few weeks. We focused on what our staff and parents felt was important. keeping students with their current teachers, and not creating a separate and rote self-guided distance learning academy. Our focus for all students, whether in person or distance learning, was and continues to be continuity of learning. As I mentioned earlier, our county reached the orange tier today, and Dr. Goldman, I note your comment. This is still in consideration and planning phases, but we do want to find effective and authentic ways to bring back students for longer hours and varied experiences. We will spend time over the next few weeks identifying ways we can do this with as little disruption to our teaching staff and schedules as possible. Our current schedules and our commitment to continuity of learning do not provide extensive flexibility, but we are a creative group, and I'm confident that we'll look for some opportunities for more in-person learning for our students, whether via enrichment program, fitness activities, or other special opportunities. I share this in a very general terms because our focus has been on the current reopening. And I'm grateful today that our students had a choice to have impactful in-person learning and effective distance learning. Thank you to our teaching staff for being the backbone that made this all work. It's been a year of flexibility and compromise, of continued dialogue and partnership. Moving on to the Aquatic Center. At the end of last week, we reconvened for the first time since the pandemic, the Wiseburn El Segundo Aquatic Center Committee. We didn't meet obviously because of the pandemic. This is the Governance and Oversight Committee, a joint team of the City of El Segundo personnel, Wiseburn USD personnel, and DV Schools personnel to discuss pool operations and finance. The last meeting was just a meet and greet due to a large turnover in the city personnel. But future meetings will be agendized and posted to follow all Brown Act rules for open meetings. Lastly, I want to talk about the LCAP. I want to thank Sarah and Eileen for really coordinating this. And I know Dave played a major part in this and putting together meetings and really planning out how to gather stakeholder feedback, stakeholder input. And I'd like to share with our families that if you'd like to be involved in this LCAP process, feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to reach out to Dr. Harbeck. Feel free to reach out to our team here at Wiseburn so that you can be a part of the process. We can make sure that we include your voice. Also, I do have a note here, Dr. Goldman, that you did ask me to follow up on, I believe it was yesterday, on our air purifier systems. And I think the question was, are they installed and are they actually working? And so I did get clarification that we do confirm that there have been 211 air purifiers that were installed in all of our classrooms, office spaces, et cetera. And they all have been tested by Kaya in conjunction with Josue from our maintenance department to ensure that they're all working. So they are all working and installed.
Thank you.
I guess lastly, we're approaching spring break too. I said lastly twice, or 3 times maybe, but this is the real lastly. We are approaching spring break and I just want to wish everybody well. I want to wish everybody health. I want to wish everybody safety. I want to wish everybody all the good things that come with maybe a little bit of break, time with family and friends, and the ability to do those things that you like to do. So I wish everybody well, and I thank you a lot for all the hard work that's gone into this. That's it for me, Dr. Goldman. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Silvers. Let us progress now onto our agenda in a more traditional way. Let's go to a general 5.1. May I have a
motion?
Motion. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you, Mr. Mora.
You got a motion, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You have a second.
All right. Thank you. This is to approve resolution 2021.24 denouncing xenophobia and anti-Asian and Pacific Islander sentiment. Dr. Silvers, would you be so kind as to read this decree?
Wendy, do you mind pulling that up on the screen? Thank you. So this is the Wiseburn Unified School District resolution number 20-21.24 denouncing xenophobia and anti-Asian American and Pacific Islander sentiment due to the COVID-19 pandemic and affirming the district's commitment to the well-being and safety of Asian Americans. Whereas the Wiseburn Unified School District adopted assurances to support the safety, well-being, and inclusivity of all students, parents, caregivers, teachers, and other school employees and visitors. And whereas Wiseburn Unified School District commits to supporting all stakeholders through a lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And whereas Wiseburn Unified School District commits to engage, empower, and elevate all members of our community. And whereas Asian American and Pacific Islanders are integral, welcomed, and honored members of our community and student body. And whereas hate incidents, hate crimes, discrimination, and aggression against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are on the rise throughout the country, as Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are being falsely blamed for the COVID-19 outbreak. And whereas the Asian Pacific Policy and Planning Council, a nonprofit organization, has documented over 3,000 hate incidents against Asian Americans since the start of the pandemic. And whereas President Joseph Biden, in a nationwide speech on March 11th, 2021, condemned vicious hate crimes against Asian Americans who have been attacked, harassed, blamed, and scapegoated, and stated it's wrong, it's un-American, and it must stop. And whereas scientists have confirmed that COVID-19 is not caused by ethnicity, and health organizations have cautioned against using geographic descriptors because they can fuel ethnic discrimination. And whereas COVID-19 is a public health issue, not a racial one, and the characterization of COVID-19 with racial and/or ethnic monikers encourages hate incidents, hate crimes, discrimination, and aggression against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And whereas the increased use of anti-Asian rhetoric nationwide has resulted in Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders of all ages being harassed, assaulted, and scapegoated for the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas Wiseburn Unified School District wishes to affirm its commitment to the well-being and safety of Asian American and Pacific Islander students, parents, caregivers, teachers, and other school employees and visitors, now therefore be it resolved that the Wiseburn Unified School District hereby, 1, denounces xenophobia, racism, discrimination, and anti-Asian American and Pacific Islander sentiment due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And 2, affirms its commitment to providing a safe, welcoming environment for all students, parents, teachers, other school employees, and visitors of any race, ethnicity, and national origin.
Thank you, Dr. Silvers. With strong affirmation, Ms. Subaki, if you'd take a vote, please.
Neil, can we comment?
Oh, please. I'm sorry. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you. I wanted to share a couple of thoughts as well regarding this resolution. First, within Wiseburn Unified School District, we absolutely value diversity, equity, and inclusion. The acts of hate that have been perpetuated to the AAPI community are simply not acceptable. You are an integral part of our society and of our Wiseburn community. So for that, thank you. Thank you for being a valued part of our community. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
I just wanted to comment again too, folks. I commented earlier, and I just want to say again how proud I am of our district for our, not just the words that we say about equity, but the actions by which we show every day in every way that we are welcoming and appreciative of all races, all ethnic groups, and believe in equity and practice equity across all of our programs and all of the work that we do. So thank you for this resolution. It documents something that we value very highly.
Dr. Silvers, if I could ask a favor that this resolution gets sent to every employee in the district and talked about at sites, I think that would be invaluable to our team.
Sure.
Thank you.
Will do.
Thank you all. Ms. Subaki, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
All right, let's move to some ratifications. And I've been advised we need to take each of these independently. So if we can have a motion, thank you, Mr. Mora, to ratify the resolution 2021.23 regarding our insurance and volunteers.
You have a motion?
Thank you.
You have a second?
Questions or comments on this? We do this every year. Ms. Subaki?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Moving to 5.3, and again, we need to take this independently. Ratify a memorandum of understanding, MOU, between Wiseburn Unified and the Wiseburn Faculty Association.
You have a motion?
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
Thank you. Dr. Silvers, did you want to add something here?
You know, I think I would just distinguish the differences. We're ratifying two MOUs, but with the Wiseburn Faculty Association. One is for elementary schools and the other is for middle school. So it's that's 5.3 and 5.4. And I just would like to thank WFA leadership for their support, collaboration. It's been a process, right? And this was, they show great leadership in helping us move forward and to get to where we are today.
Thank you, and I echo that thanks to their leadership in challenging times. Very, very much appreciated. With no other comments, Ms. Subaki.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Now to the other memorandum of understanding between Wiseburn Unified and WFA. This is item 5.4.
You have a motion?
Thank you.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead. Perfect. Never mind. I think that was Roger.
Thank you.
And once again, I think, as Blake said, there were two separate agreements, one really negotiating team pretty much across the board. And I want to compliment Blake and Dr. Dougal, because I know these were some of Dr. Dougal's first negotiations. And Blake, as you've always participated, thank you to the teachers, the teacher representative, and to our staff. I know these were unusual negotiations in an unusual time. And I appreciate everyone coming together in good faith with the goal of serving our students in our community. So thank you.
Thank you,
Joanne. Ms. Subaki?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
That was an aye.
Okay,
Item-
all opposed?
Oh, sorry. I'm ahead of myself.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're good.
Item 5.5, review the 2020 SARC School Accountability Report Card for SLC.
You have a motion?
Thank you.
You have a second?
Go ahead, Dr. Silvers.
Eileen, can you just comment on this? I'm sorry, or Peggy. I'm not sure which one. Yeah.
The SARC always comes before the board every single year. This is our school accountability report card. You get to review one for each site. And we do, we've already brought the other schools before you. This is separate, the SLC. They did write it separately, but it was on, we want to make sure that it went through board approval as well.
I did notice one thing, just not really the point of this report, but I was just interesting looking at the numbers that we had so many seniors this year. We seem, SLC, I didn't realize, it seems to be weighted significantly towards seniors. And I'm, obviously we know that the viability of the program requires a certain number of students. And I don't know if we have any concerns about next year or who knows what we're going to get, but just keeping an eye on that.
Peggy, can you comment to that? I mean, I think that it's really an unknown. I know it's a variable, but do you have any idea?
I do. So we actually recently have received several referrals from local districts. So while we have kids that are seniors, but who will leave, obviously, we have received several in the last few weeks. I think because schools are reopening and kids are coming back into session, everything was kind of at a standstill before. So it is picking up.
I appreciate that. And we have all 5 of our schools have reopened, and thank you, Peggy, for your team as well. Ms. Subaki.
All in favor, please.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Moving now to action items, facilities, items 6, 6, 1, 2, and 3. These are the piggybacks that Mr. Wilson referred to earlier. We can have a collective motion here, please.
I would like to motion 6.1 through 6.3.
Thank you, Nelson.
A second. Joanne?
Yes, thank you.
Comments or questions from anyone? With none, and just for our community, because we have negotiated these piggybacks, we are able to get other districts using them, and we gained some fees from this, which is just terrific. And I appreciate the staff finding alternative and creative sources of income beyond our ADA and LCAP funds. So thank you. Ms. Zubaki.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Moving to fiscal items, action item 7.1, approved contract renewal with Frontline.
You have a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
You have a second?
Thank you. We do this every year. Perhaps Blake, you can share again why we do this, what this is.
Yeah, so this is actually our sub finder. So it just sort of does systematize and make an electronic option for tracking and assigning subs. So our subs are signed into this, and we do this every year. I think what's not on here is what our cost has been in the past. And why we don't take multi-year contracts. I know, I'm sorry, you've all asked me to do that in the past, and so we'll try and get those notes in from here on out. But I did ask Mr. Wilson to look some of that up. So Dave, I don't know if you've actually been able to locate that information, but if you can share that, that'd be great.
I have. So last year's contract for the 2021 school year was 11,452. So 21-22 with this contract here that we're presenting is 12,008. So it went up $556 or 5%. And I believe last year I did reach out to Frontline. I believe I did. I could be wrong. Inquiring about a multi-year contract, and I believe they were not interested in that. So there are some vendors that are open to it, and others that are not. But we can certainly try again.
Appreciate that. Are we? How satisfied are we with this provider? Do we happy with it?
I'll speak from the HR side. We are very happy with the program in terms of not just substitute call-in, but teachers and classified staff being able to report absences and us being able to track those absences as well. So at this time, it is kind of frontline in terms of its programming. And so we'd appreciate keeping it.
Questions or comments, anyone? All right, Wendy, let's take it to a vote, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Moving to the audit report, 2019-2020, 7.2, motion, please.
I'll motion.
Thank you, Joanne.
I'd like the second.
Thank you, Nelson. Again, kudos to the team, as we've said, and Mr. Wilson, we remain in good hands. Thank you. Hearing no comments, Ms. Bucky?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Item 7.3, ratify approved miscellaneous receipts and purchase orders.
You have a motion?
Thank you, Roger.
You have a second?
Thank you, Nelson.
Questions on that?
Any questions?
No questions for me.
As Roger's pursuing, just a note that Mr. Wilson, I think in the past we talked about maybe especially because of the in lieu of taxes that passed through for Da Vinci, just getting the other side, if you could in the future provide, no expectation in this meeting, especially the length of the meeting, but that cash flow report we talked about would be helpful.
My plan is to present it at the April 15th meeting.
Well done, sir. Roger, any questions?
No, none.
Okay. Ms. Zubaki?
All in favor, please?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Action items 8, consent. Can we have a motion, please, for all if desired?
I'd like to motion 8.1 through, what's the last one there? I can't see it, 8.11.
You got
You
it.
have a second?
Thank you. Any questions on any of these items?
No questions.
No.
Thank you. Ms. Zubaki?
All in favor, please?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
And finally, moving to personnel, item 9, a motion, please.
Can we motion them all?
Good.
Yeah, 9.1 through 9.5. I'll
Thank you.
motion.
I'll second that.
Great. Any questions or comments from the cabinet? Anything we need to know here?
No questions.
I would just clarify that we do have some, at least one very long-term employee that we're going to want to recognize. And that's on here. I guess it's this item that's currently on the screen. Oh, there it is, 9.1, sorry. Miss Candy Gray. So we will, just as we've had with recent retirements and resignations that have come to the board at that meeting in May, I think it's the second meeting in May, we'll acknowledge those long-term employees that are retiring or resigning.
Yeah, she's been a great, wonderful teacher, just a wonderful
Wow.
person. Yeah,
38 years. Wow.
good for her.
Yeah. Yeah. My son's had her as well, and she was amazing. Yeah. Very. Mhm.
All right, Ms. Subaki.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Ms. Subaki, because you didn't read enough tonight, if you would take us through the upcoming dates and events, please.
Absolutely. We will be having Cabrillo School will be having this week on Thursday, April 1st, their spring break drive-in movie. If anyone is interested in reservations for that, they just need to go to www.cabrillopta.org, and there's an invitation there that they can log into. Next week, or at the end of this week, we will begin spring break at Wiseburn schools, and that extends through Friday, April 9th, with students returning April 12th, Monday. And Cabrillo School will be having a Spirit Day in May, May 21st. It's a Friday. They'll be wearing Cabrillo gear, Blue Spirit Day. And on Friday, May 16th, SLC will be having an El Camino virtual visit to the SLC.
Great.
That's all that we have for now.
Well, thank you. As Dr. Silver said, everybody be safe. Have a great time over spring break. Obviously, be conscious of COVID-19 and do enjoy your time away. I do believe we do need a brief second close, guys. So if you could join us again at 9:45. Pending any other comments, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
You have a motion to adjourn.
Dr. Goldman, did you say 9:45? Did you say 9:45? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. With that said, Wendy, a final vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, indeed.
All opposed? Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
And be well.
Good night.
Bye.